Jerry West joins us here on the Rich Eisen Show. Finally, that was stressful. Jerry, that was stressful. I think we thought we called you at a country club first, but we got you on now, so I'm happy.
Well, as I say, you guys got to get your numbers right.
We got to get our act together. This is like ridiculous here. This is what happens when they let me out of prison, put me back in charge. Jerry, what's your favorite All-Star memory?
You know something? Obviously, I played in 14 All-Star games, and when they first started, they were so different because, you go there, and it wasn't a really big deal. It was obviously for the players involved to get selected. It was an honor, of course. And today, you have your fans involved, and so it was a completely different process of getting there. But, today you can take some cities that will put their players on there, and they'll really rally tremendous support behind them. And obviously some players that get there are because of the support of the fans in their respective city, and everyone pushes certain players because they think they played well enough to get there. So it's a completely different process. At one time you went there for the All-Star game, and now all the other festivities, the dunk contest, the shooting contest, the skills contest. And it's really like, I assume, one big party. I don't make it a habit to go to these games because they've changed so much. And the other things are part of the excitement for the fans and obviously the kids and the sponsors. And it's kind of a respite from, an excruciating, difficult schedule for these kids this year.
Jerry, what's it like for you watching the change in the players as they become, Marshall and I were talking about this earlier with Charles Barkley, more self-absorbed, more focused on themselves, the changes in their attitudes towards the game that you love so much?
Well, I think it's easy for people to sit back and criticize, but one of the things, time doesn't stand still, Suzy. The advent of the game, the three-point shot has changed everything. I think the loosest of standards at one time that would not be acceptable today in terms of, the carrying the ball, the walking that goes on, the violations of the rules. And again, this is a really tough game to officiate because of the size, skill, and the quickness of the game. But my goodness, I just see walking all over the place. It's just amazing to me. It's something that they tolerate now that wouldn't be tolerated before. And I think it's the advent of the Euro step, which many times is not 3 steps, about 4 steps. It's simply impossible to change directions 90 degrees or 100 degrees unless you carry the ball. But I think we better get used to it as part of the culture now, and it's about entertainment and allowing the players the biggest stage they can to show off their ball handling ability, some of the incredible things they do physically. So the game is changing, but I think the biggest change has been the three-point shot. At one time, coaches, there are a lot of different coaching styles. Some people more protective of controlling the game, number of shots taken, a lot of times because of a lack of physical equipment on their team, lack of players that didn't have this great skill, so they tried to mold them into some kind of players. But today, my goodness, you don't see a lot of teams score less than 100 points today in any given game.
Jerry, and I'll ask you this question because I don't know how you're supposed to do it. How do you play defense now in the NBA? Is it like you just not? Because it's hard. I mean, everything's a foul in today's game.
Well, it's become more difficult, and as I say, over the years, people come to the games to see some of the. We have some unbelievable athletes in this year, and I heard you talking about LeBron James. Now, I want you to think of what this guy's accomplished for so many years. Physically, he's just been so dominant his whole career. Now, as he's gotten older, I think he's gotten to be a better basketball player. I really do. He just doesn't always rely on his ability to go into the basket, use his size and his cleverness to bump people off and make shots. He really can shoot the ball now. And I think that's been the reason he's been able to survive, along with this unbelievably gifted mind that he has. And it's become a profession now. And today, the amount of money that the kids can make today, don't you think for a second that they don't want to put themselves in a position in life to be able to walk away from the game and say, oh, I can start a career, a new life, based upon the fact that I don't have to rush out and get a job to try to support myself. So you have to give it to the kids. And as I say, the NBA is progressive, and obviously things that fans like to see. Some of them are really spectacular. You go back and look at him, you say, oh, my gosh, the guy walked about 6 steps doing it. And but again, they used to be so strict with the rules, but I think it's a sign of the times. I mean, there were a lot of rules that were strict then, not just applying to basketball, but life in general. And we do not have those rules today, and they're becoming a lot less strict on a lot of things that people do in their regular lives, much less in sports. And we just got through the Super Bowl. My goodness, and if you watch, passes being thrown, how subjective it is for pass interference. My goodness. And if the wrong time of the game, early in the game, they won't call them. Late in the game, they will not call them unless the offensive team has it. And I just see a complete difference in all sports. Hockey, I don't know. I think it's one of the most fun games in person to see. I do not know some of the penalties they're calling. I watched hockey for years when I was a player. I used to see all the home games. I loved hockey. But as I say, certainly the rules have been restricted, but also to allow these players who can do so many remarkable things, and it's pretty to watch. But in the process, it might not be legal at one time in the league.
Hey, Jerry, a question, and I don't know this about the rules of basketball. Can an offensive guy get called for flopping? Is it an actual foul? Will they call?
As I say, there's a few people in this league that are really clever, and the officials today. Every time you hear a guy drive, if you're listening on the air, guy always screams before he even shoots the ball.
Yeah.
So he's hoping to draw the attention of officials. They do listen, and that to me is. Go to acting school sometimes, and you'll do better. But again, this game has completely changed. I watched a game last night, which I watch a game every night or some game, and watching the Knicks and the Nets last night. The Knicks had another insurmountable lead, and imagine to get some way somehow to lose a game. They've lost a bunch of games where they've been in 20 points ahead and lose it in the last quarter, and it's hard to believe as well coached as they are. But it also shows you that players who keep playing and putting more pressure, and it usually applies on both ends of the court. More aggressive defensive play, which forces quicker shots, bad shots. You miss them. These leads can evaporate really quickly in the league, and I think that's why people don't leave games anymore, because teams can come back, and particularly if they work at it.
Oh, Jerry, somewhere Stephen A. Smith is still in a fetal position.
Oh, my God.
Screaming at the top of his head, the Knicks are a national disgrace. Jerry, that game was ridiculous, was it not?
Well, they played the Lakers here in Los Angeles and were way ahead. I think they played Portland. They were way ahead. And, again, these games are never over. All you have to make, and if you just think about it, let's say that you're ahead by 15 points, okay? You come down and miss 2 shots, and you miss them. The other team goes down and makes a 3, okay? All of a sudden they make 2 turnovers. The team comes down and makes another 3 and a foul shot. 4 times down the court, you might make up 12 points. Mm-hmm. And so, fans get frustrated because New York wants a team, okay? And I look back in time, and they've had some very good teams there. They won championship back there, but probably that was the place I really wanted to be drafted. To be honest with you, I thought I was going to get drafted there, being from West Virginia, we played there all the time. The fans were very accepting of the fact we played a very up-tempo game, and I thought it would be a great place to play, but as it turned out, again, some things, life doesn't always provide what you think is going to happen, and to have an opportunity to come here in Los Angeles and, play my career here and be involved for so many years, it was probably the right thing that happened.
Yeah, somehow that worked out for you, Jerry West, Hall of Famer, legendary icon Jerry West. Hey, I'm curious your thoughts on the Ben Simmons trade and the trade that went down, obviously. What are your thoughts on mental illness becoming part of the equation here and how this turned out?
Well, Suzy, I spoke about it a long time ago, and I wrote a book and talked about the issues I face in my life, and most of the issues I face in my life are how to deal with my emotional issues. And my goodness, I've lived, like a lot of people, some really dark moments in my life, and I don't know what sets it off, but going back to some of the things I saw as a kid, which were not conducive for loving, nurturing families, it was really difficult for me. And then Suzy, just yesterday, now I don't know why yesterday, but yesterday I had one of the worst days of my life yesterday. It was, something that comes and goes, obviously for athletes to have to cope with it. In a world when people, the first thing they think about is how much money they're making. That has nothing to do with how you feel about yourself. There's a lot of times I felt like a failure as an athlete because we are almost like teasing the fans of Los Angeles. Lost 8 out of 9 times in the finals, and that's the time that you just kill yourself to perform at the highest level, and everyone says, well, you do it for the franchise. No, you don't. You do it for your teammates and also the fans who support you. And it doesn't, the franchise benefits from it, okay, the enormous success. But there's such a personal feeling for me that you never deceive your fans. You never keep teasing them. And listen, we've all been teased in our lives in a lot of ways, and I certainly have, and I didn't like that feeling, and I just felt we had let the fans down go. There's twice in my career that, in the height of my career, I didn't want to play anymore. It was that painful. And as I've gotten older, I think personal things bother me more now. I'm more likely to lash out than I have before. And that's not my nature normally, Suzy. It's not. But there's certain things that really frustrate you. And I think that the things that you don't accomplish as a team, for the people who support you and really care, that's what matters most.
Jerry West here on the Rich Eisen Show. Marshall Faulk, Suzy Shuster. Jerry, I think it's really, it's big of you. It's gracious of you to share that. I think many people would be flummoxed to hear that, that somebody as iconic as Jerry West can have those dark moments too.
Oh my gosh. I have a lot of them, Suzy, and as I've gotten older, there's things that just frustrate me. And Suzy, they might not be, how you treat people is the most important thing in the world. I don't care who you are. If you don't treat people with respect and kindness, it's one of the most derogatory things that everyone on this earth, regardless of who you are, if people have a lot of success, and unfortunately we look at success and say, well, that person got a lot of money. It has nothing to do with it. Giving of yourself, and my goodness, I wish in my life that I would have been able to make the kind of money these people would do. Today, I would help make a difference in the community. I wouldn't want anyone to know it. And I try in my own way to keep things that I do that are personal to me, giving back. I just don't want anyone to know it. And there's things I love to do for people, and particularly for young kids who don't have the best family life. They need a place to go and where there's a protective nature to it, someone to go there and pay attention to them, someone there go and teach them something, and more importantly, teach them discipline about how you interact with people. these are the things today that I wish that we would, instead of talking about all these excessive things that we talk about, and let's care about the people that get lost along the way, young kids and people very much like me when I was young. Unless I'd picked up a basketball, I wouldn't be alive. I wouldn't have had a chance to live my life, and more importantly, live some of my dreams. And I'm a big reader, and there's certain writers that say things in essence that have resonated with me for over the years. And the late Joan Didion, unbelievable writer and just incredibly brilliant in touching certain people. She's an amazing writer, and I can resonate with her and some of the things she said. She said something that has stood with me. I did not know this till later in my life. She said people tell themselves stories in order to live. Well, when I was a kid, I told myself stories. I didn't know who Joan Didion was. I had no idea. I used to tell myself stories because I didn't want to go home and face what I might see. And so my feel-good times when I was out there, I could make every last-minute shot find a way to put a second back on the shot clock. I could be the announcer. I could be the referee. I could be the coach. And I would not leave there. And I was 8 or 9 years old, and everything I did was solitary. And no one else liked to do what I liked to do. I used to love fishing all the time, going to the woods, wondering what I was going to see. And but that was the thing that really resonated with me. I was telling myself stories because I didn't, when I went home, hell, I wasn't going to feel very good about myself. And I've often felt that was kind of a stepping stone for me in my life. When I've thought back on it, there's been a lot of times in my life, Suzy, I just want to give up. And, I just say some people are they're charged differently. Some people are jovial and happy. Some people are not. I go through days when I don't say a word, even at this point in my life. And it's because I'm in one of those dark places, and I've seeked help before, and frankly, it doesn't help me. I can't find what I would find a peaceful place sometimes.
And that's why meditation can help so many athletes too. And if you haven't read it, I would say to anybody out there listening, A Year of Magical Thinking. Maybe, Jerry, that's one of the books that touched you so much, but I know that was one of the books that Joan Didion wrote that got me through some hard times. Amazing book.
But I read about leaders, I read about history, and everyone's so much caught up in history, but we don't study history anymore. You should learn from history, okay? And unfortunately, we don't want to learn from history. Learning from history is the greatest teaching aid that any leader, anyone else could have in this world. It talks about the pitfalls of life. If you look at wars, my goodness, I mean, it's ridiculous that people kill each other over ideologies, religion. Some person thinks that he's going to conquer the world. These are the things that you look at the millions, billions and billions and trillions of dollars that have been spent on military equipment. What if that money was spent differently in these countries that are constantly struggling to survive, their citizens, lack of food, lack of infrastructure? To me, it would, I would like to see the money spent on something else that would benefit kids and people that are growing up with some dreams that might not ever have a chance to achieve them.
Jerry West, safe travels. We'll miss you, and hopefully we'll have you back in studio when you come back.
Well, thank you guys so much. My best. And going to Cleveland for an All-Star game, I haven't gone to one for years, and unfortunately, not unfortunately, but I'm sort of going to be required to go there. But it's always nice to talk to you guys.
Enjoy Cleveland.
Hey, Cleveland, Jerry's on his way. Jerry, thanks again.
Yeah, take care. Thanks for the visit.
I'll see you when you come back.
Cleveland.
The greatest. I love Jerry West so much. There, I said it on the air. I love Jerry West. Just an
He's the
all-time
GOAT, man. The logo, man.
classy, wonderful, wonderful gentleman. Been lucky to call him a friend for almost 30 years,
The
and
logo.
I don't take it for granted.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.